talk a little bit about Yishmael, the clip of Yishmael, the negative force of Ishmael, and its relationship to Klal Yisrael, its relationship to the people of Israel, especially relative to the things that are going on in the world today, in the Holy Land of Israel, in Eretz Yisrael. So in the pasuk that says, Elu told us Yishmael ben Avram, in the end of Hayesar, the Torah tells us these are the chronicles of Ishmael, the son of Avram, and the Torah describes that how he rested, and it describes his descendants. And later in the beginning of Parshas Toldos, it starts with Elu told us Yitzchak ben Avram. And then it starts now is going to be, the Torah is going to describe the chronicles of Yitzchak, the son of Avram. So first is Yishmael ben Avram, Yishmael the son of Avram, and now Yitzchak the son of Isaac, the son of Avram. So the Baal HaTurim writes, at first there'll be the kingdom, or the power, the force of Yishmael ben Avram, of Ishmael, the son of Avram, and then afterwards will come the time of Yitzchak ben Avram, Yitzchak, Isaac, the son of Avram, which is that idea of Yitzmach is Yitzmach, Tzemach Shmoy, the idea of sprout, he will come in the name of Mashiach, is Tzemach Shmoy, and then there will be the final redemption. The world will finally reach a place of perfect peace and harmony and the revealing of Hashem's presence in this world. And it happens in stages. In the Pirkei Der Belezer, in the Medrash that's called Pirkei Der Belezer, which is a chronicle of the events that happened throughout history, following the story of the Torah. So in chapter 32, the Medrash actually describes the future time, a time in the future, and it speaks about the idea of Yishmael, that the name Yishmael is Yishmael, that Hashem shall hear, and it says that in the future, Yishmael will cause tremendous harm and tremendous anguish to Klal Yisrael, the people of Israel. Klal Yisrael will cry out in prayer, cry out Yishma, and then Hashem will hear our prayers. Reb Chaim Vital, in his little slim sefer that's called Eitz Adas Tov, which is a book more on the more Musar, according to Musar, not so much according to more an ethical book than a Kabbalistic book. Over there, he also speaks about the tremendous hardships that will befall Klal Yisrael, the people of Israel, at the end of times, before the arrival of Mashiach, the final arrival of the revealing of Mashiach, and he speaks of it in a very harsh way. It'll be very harsh times. And then finally, it'll be Elu told us Yitzchak, the Azimol is Choik Pinu, and then the world will be filled with laughter. Yitzchak Avinu, the Gemara says in Shabbos, that we'll call Yitzchak our father, because it'll be a revealing, a laughter. A laughter is when there is a revealing of something that you thought was one way and it actually turns out the other way. That's what really a joke is. A joke occurs when you see what in your mind you're anticipating a certain result of the way the joke should resolve itself, and then something unexpected, and that's the joke. So the joke is, and the Alter Rebbe explains this in Torah also, the idea of Yitzchak, the avodah of Yitzchak, that Yitzchak is the joke, which means the transformation of something that seems to be harsh and hard and very difficult, and then it's transformed and it turns into laughter. This is the transformation and the ultimate redemption. But before that will come, before that will arise, before that will become revealed in a way that we see the joke of reality. And will come to the place of the joke in the end of times, which will recognize that the joke, that the whole physical world and everything that seems to be from the world of concealment will be revealed actually as a revealing of Hashem's presence, an ultimate revealing of that we'll all see, we'll all see the name of Hashem, the presence of Hashem in this world. But until we get to that point, there has to be some type of birur, some type of elevation, and some type of refinement through the process of Yishmael. First, the process of Yishmael. The Alter Rebbe also speaks about this in a Maimer Katzer, Mamar Katzarim, in Inyanim. He speaks about this, that Yishmael, the difference between Yishmael and Yavan, between the Greeks, and Yishmael, which is embodiment of Islam. He talks about that, and we see this with regards also to the type of music that they play, that Yishmael, which is Chesed Shebigvura, Menagim Meruris Lamai, V'chazech, v'royel ish ein tzarech l'chazech, soines sine gemura, ach ad sheikach ki yada l'darke v'dai l'yadechein. Alter Rebbe speaks about this very, very harsh, painful reality of Klal Yisrael in a way that they suffer under Yishmael, or the struggle of Yishmael, is that it can bring about through Yishmael, this Yishmael has a sina gedola, sina gemura, a tremendous amount of hate. And again, this will eventually be transformed. And incidentally, hate is always better than indifference. Indifference is that you look at a person and you don't even recognize his humanity at all. And hate means you hate the person. If hate is an emotion can be turned into love. The lack of emotion is the emptiness, which is even worse. Either way, we find that there is an idea of Yishmael, first the idea of Ishmael, and then there's the rising of Toldos Yitzchak, the chronicles of the birth of Yitzchak, of joy, and the redemption. So this is very interesting because the Medrash, in a few places, the Medrash Rav in the beginning, and the Medrash Rav in the Rizben Absarim, a few other places, the Medrash speaks about, based on a vision of Daniel, of the prophet Daniel, the Medrash speaks about the 4 exiles, the 4 Goliaths. And the 4 Goliaths and the 4 exiles is the way the Medrash describes it is Bavel, is the Babylonian exile, which is the destruction of the first temple, the first Beis Hamikdash. Then there's the story of Paras, which is Persia, the story of Purim, which is the second exile. Then the Medrash speaks about the Galus of Yavon, the Greeks or the Assyrian Greeks, which is the story of Hanukkah, and the 4th exile for Klal Yisrael is the Roman exile, which is the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash, of the second temple. This is the way the Medrash talks about it, and it uses different words, Tahoim and Choshech, Pnei Tahoim, different words that the Torah describes as certain types of darkness, both by the Rizben Absarim, by the covenant with Avram, and both in the beginning of the Torah describes these 4 exiles. Just historically, the Medrash is already thousands of years old. And then there was the rise of Yishmael as a kingdom, as an empire. And the first time that Klal Yisrael really suffered collectively, there was small incursions in Saudi Arabia and other places, in Yemen, other places where there was an expansion above Yishmael. But the first time that Klal Yisrael really suffered very, very harshly under Ishmael was in the times of the Rambam, with the Almohads, who were a fundamentalist, like ISIS type of group that came from Morocco and conquered parts of Spain. And then the question became, which is interesting that you find the Rishonim are talking about, the early commentators of that time period are discussing which exile is that, because it was a very harsh time. It was, historically, that was the end of the Andalusian Jewry, and there was famous yeshivas in Lucena, which the Rif was, and the Rimagosh, very famous yeshivas, academies of Torah scholarship. Torah scholarship was on a very high ramah, a very high level. And then it came to a close because the Almohads basically persecuted all the Jews and non-Muslims and threw them out of the country if they didn't convert. So there was a forced conversion, and even the Rambam himself had to live for a short period of time under forced conversion, and then he escaped with his family. So there was an understanding this is a tremendous exile for Klal Yisrael, a tremendous hardship for Klal Yisrael. The whole world Jewry of Spain, the glorious glory of Spain, of Spanish Jewry from the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 1200s, all moved into Castile, had to move up to Aragon. But this was seen as a tremendous hardship. So the Rishonim at that period of time discuss, what is this Galus Yishmael? What is this exile Yishmael? Is it Yishmael? And the question was, if this is actually one of the exiles, how come it's not found in the Medrash? And the Medrash talks about these 4 exiles, which is the exile, the Babylonian, the Persian, and the Greek and the Roman. How come we don't find the idea of Galus Yishmael? Why doesn't the Medrash describe, or even the Torah describe, this exile or predict this exile in the book of Daniel? Particularly, why doesn't it predict this exile or this hardship and persecution that arises from Yishmael? So the Even Ezer, who lives in that time period, the same time period as the Rambam, the 1200s, a little later, also, the Even Ezer writes that in the book of Daniel, that the truth is that the four exiles are as follows: that Bavel and Madai, Bavel is one, Babylonian is one, the Persian is one. He says that the Greek, the Yavan and Romi, the Greek and the Romans is the third exile. So the Babylonians, the Persians, the Greek/Romans, which resonates also historically because the Romans were really a continuation of the Greeks, even though they lived a little bit in similar parts of the world, but in close proximity. But the Romans essentially took the Greek ideas and expanded them. So the Greeks and the Romans were seen as one civilization. There was the Babylonian civilization with the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash, the Persian civilization with the story of Purim. Both the story of Yavan and Romi, both Greek and Romans, were seen as one. Chazal also say that Romi is a people that don't have their own language, don't have their own philosophy. So it's seen as an extension of Greece. And then the fourth one is Golus Yishmael, is the exile of the Ishmaelite kingdom. This is what the Even Ezer says. The Ramban, in Parshas Bamidbar, in the Chumash Bamidbar, the Ramban argues. The Ramban lived a little bit later. He also lived in Corona, which is the place where a lot of the Jews migrated after they left Andalusia. And the Ramban writes that when the Even Ezer says that the fourth exile is Yishmael, is not found in Chazal. That's not the way Chazal read it. It's not the way the sages read it. In fact, the Chazal say that the fourth one is Romi, and the third one is Rome, and the third one is Greece, and the second one is Persian, and the first one is Babylonian. It doesn't mention anything about Yishmael. This is what the Ramban argues against that. So this is complicated. This is according to Ramban, that doesn't work. The Yavitz, I just saw recently a few days ago, the Yavitz in Itzutzi Yavitz he has little commentaries or additions or corrections that he writes on the Zohar. Agaz al Zohar. The Yavitz in the beginning, the Gamla Zohar, the Yavitz writes that the fourth kingdom, which is the Roman kingdom itself, is divided into Esav and Yishmael. And Esav Yishmael is the Roman kingdom and the Islamic kingdom. That the Rome and Islam, these two kingdoms, when Chazal speak about the fourth one, the fourth exile, as the exile of Rome, it actually means the two offshoots, or essentially the way the Gra understands it, they're the two roots of the 70 nations, which is Rome, which is Western civilization, is seen as the Roman civilization, and then the Middle Eastern civilization, which is the Arabic or Islamic civilization, which also conquered many parts of Europe up until parts of Hungary and almost to Vienna. So there was this tremendous kingdom, certainly the Ottoman Empire. So there was the idea of these two clashes of these two civilizations, and they're both part of the fourth one, which the sages call Romi. This is what the Yavitz writes. The Maral, interestingly enough, the Maral, who lives before the Yavitz, but a few years, 100 years after the Ramban, the Maral lives in Bohemia, lives in Prague. The great Maral. The Maral writes in their mitzvah on the idea of Hanukkah, where he speaks a lot about the four exiles. That's where he talks about it at great length, and generally the Maral speaks about this at great length in many other places. The Maral says that he gives two answers. How come Ishmael is not mentioned as one of the four kingdoms that oppress and cause hardship of exile to Klal Yisrael, to the people of Israel? The Maral says two things. One is that the four corresponds to Malchi, the kingdoms, these empires correspond to the Malchi Yisrael, which is that when one falls, one rises, and they correspond to each other, and they're yonik from each other. That the Malchi, the kingdoms, receive from the kingdom of Israel. and therefore Yishmael is kav lifnei atzma, is a separate path, has its own journey. It's a parallel journey, but not in contrast to Klal Yisrael. This is one answer the Maral gives. And the second answer, which is prophetic really, the Maral says that Ishmael is really part of Paras, is part of Persia. So there's the Babylonian exile, then the Persian exile, and then the Greek and the Roman. He says part of the Persian exile, which today is Iran, part of the Persian exile is Yishmael. And this is fascinating that the Maral speaks about this and predicts this almost in a prophetic way, speaking about that Yishmael, the pinnacle of Paras, the pinnacle of the Persian Empire of the future, which will cause a lot of hardship to Klal Yisrael, will be connected to Yishmael. The Yishmael is actually related and the essence of Paras. The essence of Yishmael is reflected, or the pinnacle of the aggression of Yishmael is particularly connected to Persia. Now, what is Yishmael in the Torah? Who is Yishmael in the Torah? So one of the things that the Torah describes Yishmael is that Yishmael was noilad, the way the Medrash says that, the Birkat Eliezer, that he was noilad b'keshes, he's connected to the bow and arrow, to the bow, and he's connected to the keshes, he's connected to the idea of a keshes. A keshes is a bow. V'hiro the keshes, the Torah says that he'll be a person that will, a nation that will be tied to their bow, which on one level obviously means connected to war and to expansion. And Chazal also, the Medrash over there speaks about that Rivka saw that Sarah saw that Yitzchak, that Yishmael was pointing a keshes, an arrow, to kill Yitzchak, and that's why Sarah got really upset and told Avram, which means that Yishmael is connected to keshes, to the idea of a bow. Then later it says, when Yishmael's mother puts him aside, it says that she watched him mirachik k'mitchel keshes. She stands from a distance of the throwing of an arrow, which means everything that Yishmael is connected to, everything connected to Yishmael is connected to the idea of a keshes. Now, what is a keshes? A keshes simply means a bow, like in a bow and arrow, which means that it's expansion. You're standing here and you're throwing it in a different direction. You're aiming it and it's hitting in the other direction, which is the expansion of war. But on a deeper level, keshes is particularly connected to Yishmael. The idea of a keshes, the idea of a bow, is particularly connected to Yishmael, connected to the idea previously which you mentioned, which the idea of Yishmael is Yishmakel, the idea of prayer, the idea of hearing. Because Becharbi Bekashti, when the Torah speaks about Becharbi Bekashti is like with a bow and arrow, with my sword and my bow. So that the Unkelus, the translation of the Gemara brings it down above Basikal Chav Gimel, that the idea of Bekashti, Becharbi Bekashti, B'Salei Sibulusi, the Torah mitzvahs, but also B'Salei Sibulusi, which means with prayer. That the keshes is particularly connected. The bow is specifically intricately connected to the idea of prayer. Now, one of the postures that a person has to do when they daven, so Chazal say that when a person prays, especially Shemona Esrei and Zman Hatzara, so a person has to put the right hand over the left hand upon their heart. So they put the left hand upon the heart and put the right hand over it, which is a posture of prayer. That's the Gemara says in Shabbos Daf Yud, that's the way a person should daven. One of the Migurushi Svard, one of the people that were expelled from Spain in 1492, was the great Kabbalist Rabbi Yehuda the Chayet, and he wrote a commentary to the Marechas Alakus, which is a mystical text, a Spanish mystical text from Tudas Malafia, apparently, and he wrote a commentary, and in there he says that the word keshes, which the sages interpret the bow as prayer, and the posture of putting your left hand or your right hand is specifically connected to davening, connected to prayer, because he says when you put your right hand over your left hand, what you're really doing is you're creating a bow. You're creating a triangle, which is symbolic of the idea of a bow and an arrow. And the idea of prayer is that you're shooting up arrows to above, to pierce the heavens. And then there's an opening of flow, an opening of revelation. He says that prayer itself is connected to keshes. So we see that the idea of prayer, davening, specific tefillah, is intricately connected to the idea of keshes. Now keshes, the bow, is also associated with this month, the month of Kislev that we're presently in. The month of Kislev, we're in the middle of Kislev today. Kislev is, according to Sefer Yetzirah, the zodiac influence of Kislev. And what that means exactly is for another conversation, but the influence that's connected to Kislev is Sadigaris, is a keshes, which is the idea of a bow. And this is specifically also connected to the Yom Tov, the holiday of Hanukkah. Okay. So in Hanukkah, there is a custom. On Hanukkah, there's a minig Yisrael, there's a custom to play with something that's called, in Yiddish, something that's called a Dreidel or Sivivion, to play with this little toy, which some say is connected to a particular German type of toy that was played that had four sides, and Stell and Nicht and Halb. These are all German words for how you play the game. If you have to put in money or put in something or take half, or Nicht is garnished, take nothing. But either way, the Shemish, the Bnei Yissaschar and other tzaddikim write that really this dreidel goes back, this four-formed spinner, which is you have a spinner on top, a little stick on the top, and then there's four sides, and one side is a nun, gimel, and hey, and a shin, which symbolically represents not just nisht and halb and shtel and garnish, not just the Yiddish German words for nothing or half or put in or get half, but also neis gadol hoya sham, a great miracle has happened there, or neis gadol hoya poi. If it's in Israel, you instead of the shin, you have the pei, which is a great miracle happened here. So nun gimel hey shin, and you spin it, and it falls either in the nun, on the gimel, and the hey, and the shin. Okay, this is the game. It's a little game, but it is great depth to what this game is, what this game represents. The Shem Shmuel, which is from the tradition of Ishbitz, speaks about the dreidel. So there's Bnei Yissaschar, but the Shem Shmuel speaks about the dreidel, and he ties it to the four exiles. It's interesting to note that generally in Ishbitz, which is also connected to the Kotsk and the Yida Kaddish or Bunim, are very much connected to the Torah, to the teachings of the Maral. So is the Alter Rebbe, we saw in Messiahim, is also the teachings of the Maral. But you have a special connection, that line of Hasidic teachings, you have a special connection to the teachings of the Maral. And the Shem Shmuel speaks about these four exiles, and he says these four exiles are actually connected to the four sides of the dreidel. So you have the nun of the dreidel, stands for the word nefesh. Nefesh means spirit, which means that the spirit, there was an exile of spirit. What's the exile of spirit? He says that's the Babylonian exile, the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash. The destruction of the first temple took out the spirit of Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael were proud people that lived in the land of Israel for 1,000 years, almost 1,000 years. After the exile, after the exodus from Egypt, and they finally get to Eretz Yisrael, and they build the Mishkan, and they finally build the Beis HaMikdash. In times of David and Shlomo, they build King David and King Solomon. They built the Beis HaMikdash, and had for over 400 years, and they had a temple, a Beis HaMikdash, and a centralized place, and they had a kingdom, and a strong kingdom. And then with the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash, the spirit of Klal Yisrael was lost. The Ruach of Klal Yisrael, the spirit of Klal Yisrael, Nevuah was lost, prophecy was lost. So the Nun corresponds to Nefesh, to the spirit. The Gimel, which is the second, Nun Gimel is the other letter on the four letters of the spinner. The Gimel corresponds to the word Guf, body, which is the story, the exile of Paras, which is the Persian exile. The Persian exile, and Chazal generally say that Paras is Mesur v'Lumabasa Kedoiv, they have a lot of flesh, and they're aggressive. The idea of Paras, of the Persian exile, was the story of Purim. The story of Purim is when Haman wished with Achashverosh to destroy the body of Klal Yisrael, to kill literally the Jewish people physically. And therefore, the word Gimel is connected to Guf, which corresponds to the exile of the Persian exile. The Shin, we skip a letter, or Shin, or the Pei. Shin is Seichel, or philosophy, which means either intelligence or philosophy, which is the idea of Yavan, the Greeks. That the story of Hanukkah, in particular the story of Hanukkah, was that there was the Hellenized Jews, and there was an internal battle within Klal Yisrael whether we should follow the Torah's path, the path of purity and holiness and transcendence, or we should become Hellenized and take the path of philosophy of the Greeks. That was the real battle of Hanukkah. There was the internal battle of Hanukkah, the story of Hanukkah. So that was another type of exile, the Greek exile, the Greek philosophy versus prophecy, versus transcendence and holiness. And then the fourth one, which is the Hey, it means Hakol, represents the word Hakol, which means everything, which is Rome, which is a type of existential exile. So essentially, what the Shem Yishmael is saying is that there are four exiles, collective exiles and also inner exiles. But the four collective exiles of Klal Yisrael, the people of Israel, were these four affronts and battles that Klal Yisrael had to do with either with the spirit that was broken, their spirit, the nefesh of Klal Yisrael was broken, and they had to rekindle their spirit, or there was a battle for the guf of Klal Yisrael, for the body, and Klal Yisrael survived on a physical level, or there was a battle, an exile of the philosophy, of empirical philosophy versus transcendence and prophecy, and that was a type of spiritual exile. And there's also the exile of everything. It says that's an existential exile that has a little bit of everything. This is really what the Romans were not distinct in their philosophy. The Romans were a hodgepodge of a lot of different ideas, of a confluence of a lot of different ideas that the Romans held, and therefore their exile represents, which is today the Roman exile or the Western civilization exile, is that it's a little bit of everything. It's a little spiritual, it's a little mental, it's a little physical, etc. So these are the four exiles. This is on a collective level and also on a personal level. A personal level, the exile means that a person tries to reach a place of their perfection, a place of holiness, and a place of transcendence, and try to be true and authentic to themselves. And sometimes a person feels their spirit is down, and therefore they feel low, and therefore they can't do what they have to do in this world. Sometimes they feel that their body is their exile, and their body is not letting them do. They would like to do this, they would like to pray, they would like to learn, they would like to do mitzvahs, they would like to do the right thing, but they're tired and physically hard. Or there's a type of exile which is I would love to learn, but my mind can't do it. I have ADHD and I can't think straight, etc. So these are exiles, internal exiles, and then there's a general existential exile, just a tiredness. So these represent states of exile. What's the story of the Dreidel? The Dreidel is saying that there are four directions, and these are four very boxed-in realities, exiled realities, or limitations, constrictions. You say that you belong in a box. This is the box, and you can't transcend. You're boxed in because your spirit is boxed in. You're boxed in because your body is broken. You're boxed in because your mind is not free. This is what the boxed-in idea is, that you're stuck. What is the spinning of the dreidel? The spinning of the dreidel means that you're spinning it. You're saying that there's a higher force in the universe, which is the spinner. So every just like if you look at the dreidel doesn't stand straight. If you don't spin it, it doesn't hold up straight. It falls, which means that every single civilization and every single kingdom, the mighty Persian kingdom, the mighty Babylonian, the mighty Greek Empire, and the mighty Roman Empire all fell, which means that it's a time process. They were very powerful, and they caused a lot of havoc and a lot of destruction, a lot of hurt to Klal Yisrael, a lot of pain, a lot of persecution. But ultimately, what the story of the Dreidel is telling Klal Yisrael, is that Gamze Yavor, this will pass. It seems like it to be a very mighty, powerful empire, but ultimately it's just one one reality, and then that falls and something else rises. The only thing that's nitzchi, the only thing that's eternal, is Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael is a nitzchi, is an eternal people. This comes and this goes, and this kingdom and that kingdom, but ultimately Klal Yisrael rises. And the way Klal Yisrael becomes a nitzchi, the way Klal Yisrael is nitzchi, the way Klal Yisrael is eternal, is because we're connected to the spinner. not to the spin. So there's this four sides of the dreidel. The four sides that represents the four directions of the four ways of the world. There's the Babylonian exile, and the Persian exile, and the Greek exile, and the Roman exile. Included within that is the Yishmael exile, the Islamic exile. These are all things that are temporary. They come and they go, but we are connected to the spinner, something that's beyond that. And the spinner is, in the metaphor that we're using, the spinner, like the Rambam discusses, that the world constantly is moving. There's a masavev, there's a sivuv, everything is in constant flux, constantly changing. And then there's a masavev, there's one that is spinning. When Klal Yisrael connects himself in a revealed way, through keshes, through the bow, through prayer, through the arrows that we throw up to above, when we're connected to above, we're connected to transcendence, we're connected in tefillah, v'ani tefillasi, that we are in a posture of prayer, not just if only a person should pray all day, is not just literally to sit and pray, but to be in a posture of prayer. To be in a posture of prayer, to be in a posture in tefillah, means to be a nit tefillah. We're always in a state of tefillah. Tefillah is from the language of Naftuli, that it's a language of connection. When we live with a state of connection, with an open, revealed connection, we're always connected. But when we live with an open state of connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to transcendence, we reveal nitzchis in this world, and we are powerful, and we can overcome every single adversary, every single hardship, because ultimately we're connected to something that's transcendent of all the finite things that come and go in this world, and all the empires that rise and fall, and we're connected to something that's eternal. And we have to remember that we always have to be a people that are connected to the eternal, even though we are internally always connected to the eternal, but we should be revealed way connected to the eternal in a state of posture, of tefillah, of connection, and a dveikus to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, connection to Hashem at all times, and we should overcome all the exiles and all the constrictions and all the limitations. And Klal Yisrael should be zoicha to see a full geula klalis, a full redemption from all the tzaras that Klal Yisrael is experiencing, from all the hardships and all the people that were, God forbid, that are in bondage should be freed, and everyone should have a tremendous yeshua and refuah, a tremendous healing and a tremendous salvation, and we should be zoicha to merit to see with our eyes this connection that's always present, that's always there, the revealing of Mashiach. Amen.